about 6 years, and in the last year and a half to 2 years, I'm now the library director in the library. What I want to do today is for those of you, I see a number of sort of familiar faces, and I know some of you have already been to the library, but what I have is a couple of different things. I have a nice PowerPoint presentation that'll take us through the library, or a video that I shot way back when I first started in the new space, just to give you a feel for what the library looks like. From there, I want to sort of take you to the web page, show you some of the services that we provide. Some of the things that we normally can do that's a little different now. A lot of it's being done remotely. I've already received a couple of reference requests this morning that I've done my best to try and answer just using the resources that I have at my fingertips and on my phone and on my computer. But I just want to take you through all that we do offer for members and non-members as well. So I'm going to do a lot of, I hope some of you can screen share. I have a lot of stuff that I'm going to go through by sharing my screen. If you can't, that's fine. I'll try and talk what I'm seeing on the screen so that you can sort of understand what I'm sort of telling you about the library. So what I want to start off with, if I can get is I'm going to screen share what I have on the computer. Just let me minimize that. And I have a little, sorry, still learning the kinks here. Minimize that. Can people still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see.
You can see you.
I can see you.
Okay. I have a PowerPoint up, but can people see that?
No. No.
Not yet.
Okay. How about now?
It's getting there. It's getting there.
It started to screen share.
Okay, great. So for those of you who haven't been to
There
the
it is.
library,
Yeah, got it.
got it?
Yep,
Awesome.
I see it too.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for those of you who haven't been to the library, this is a short little PowerPoint just to give you sort of a visual look at the library. This is the front sort of entrance here. I'll just go through it. If this works. So here's the front entrance to the library. We've been in this space since 2016. We started renovating this part of the building in 2014. It took us 2 years to renovate it. This is when this was a match factory. This is one of the main production floors. So as you walk into the library, these are the two main sort of desks that greet you. On the left is the main circulation desk. This is where we have 2 different staff members. I should mention that we have 5 people that work in the library, but one of the positions is split. And the people that work on the left at that desk, that's the circulation desk. We have 2 different people that work 2 days and then 3 days to sort of cover the desk. One of them is Sarah Barazenko. She's fairly new to us. She's been with us for about a year. And she works the desk in terms of, and this is where she does sort of some of the basic sort of requests in the library, and I'll get to some of the types of requests that we receive a little later. But this is where people sort of can borrow books. They can walk in the library and borrow books, or they can call in and borrow books as well. Between her and Crystal Harder also works in the expertising department, but 2 days a week she works in the library. On the right is the reference desk. When I started, when we moved into this space, that's where I was. That was my desk, sort of, and that person handles some of the reference and research requests that come into the library. The person we have in that position right now is Marcia Garman. Marion Mills, who did it for the last year and a bit, has moved up to a new position in the library. She's taken over the technical services position with Betsy Gamble, who was in that position previously retiring. So we've had a little bit of over in the library, but I think we're all settled at this point. So as you walk a little further into the library, you see these bays of shelving. What you see there on the left is sort of the first row of shelving. What we start with is our stamp catalog collection. We have the Scott catalog, every year's edition, all the way back to when it was just a price list, and that's where you can sort of find this. We don't find that a lot of people use, obviously, anything older than about 5 years, but we still do keep every year's annual edition on these shelves. And so that's what you see on the sort of on the right there on the first shelf. And it sort of wraps around the back. Here's sort of an overview of the whole library on the first floor. What we have on the main floor is the main book collection. I mentioned earlier stamp catalogs. We also have some government documents on the first floor. We also have stamp albums, as well as some name sales as well. The main collection is about consists of about 90,000 items. If you were to lay it sort of end to end, it's about 4 miles of material. We try to keep 2 copies of everything. So we keep 2 copies of every book, every stamp catalog, every auction catalog, anything you can think of, we try to keep 2 of. On the second floor above you on that screen is the second floor, and we'll go up there briefly. It's sort of, that's where we house our journal collection. So if we get a closer look at the books here, so this is where the book collection sort of starts. It sort of wraps around in a U from that previous shot. So as I mentioned, we try to keep 2 copies of everything. And really why that's done is that we like to have a copy that's in use in the library, as well as a copy that we can lend out. So APS members, one of the benefits of membership, if you're an APS member, is that you can borrow material. You don't physically have to come into the library. I know this question comes up sometimes when I'm at a stamp show and people come up to the table and say, oh, it'd be great if I could borrow material from the library, but I can't come to Bellefonte. Well, as an APS member, you don't need to come to Bellefonte. You can contact us and we can send any item that's in the library. Most of the items, I should say, there's some things in our archives and in our rare books room, which we don't send out, mostly because they're either one of a kind or they're very rare or they're in poor condition. But really anything in the collection, books, stamp catalogs, journal issues, we send out to members. And all you have to do is contact us, and that's how we do that. There is a slight fee for that, but I guess I just want to sort of get the message out. One of the great benefits of membership, if you are not a member, you can't really borrow material. There is a way to borrow material, but it's not easy. But as membership allows you to borrow the material that's in the collection. Just to give you a close-up view, this is sort of a view of the stamp catalogs that we have. This is the row that has Stanley Gibbons catalogs, as well as on the left there at the bottom, the green volumes there. Those are some Mickle catalogs, the German catalog. But mostly this is the Stanley Gibbons catalog. So on the right, nearest the sort of picture, if you're nearest the photo, is the Stamps of the World, the Stanley Gibbons version of the Scott catalog, as well as some other catalogs there. Back at the back on the first floor is sort of a seating area where people can sit and look at the most recent sort of more popular journals that come in. Say like this is where you would read the Linz Stamp News, Rossica, some of the more popular journals that are there. We try to keep about 2 years worth of those, the most recent 2 years on those shelves so that people can sit there and just look over those journals. And here's a close-up view of what those shelves look like. So you can sort of sit there when you come into the library physically and sort of look at the latest sort of journals, more popular journals. This is a view sort of from the stairs at the back of the library, just to give you sort of a little bit more of the scope of the library as well. So as we go up the stairs, this is sort of a view looking down on that same lounge area. It's sort of nice little seating. Out the back there, we have Talleyrand Park. We also have a railroad track that goes by at the back of the building. It goes by about 3 times a day. I think there's 2 runs in the morning. There's one around noon and there's one in the evening. So there's about 3 or 4 runs each day. It is an active railroad. Back in the day when it was a match factory, that's where the production, the finished matches would go and raw materials would come in the back door to what is now the library. This is the stairway that takes you up to the 2nd floor. Once we get on the 2nd floor, this is a view looking back at the top of the stairs back towards the whole 2nd floor. So on our left and on our right, we can see the collection. On the 2nd floor in the public space, this is where we have the main journal collection. So we try to keep, just like in the book collection, we try to keep 2 copies of every journal issue. We have about 3,000 titles, or 30,000 titles, I should say, or 3,000 titles, sorry, in the journal collection, many of which are no longer published. Some of them are very rare. Some of them are one of a kind. We have about 300, about 400 that are current, that are still being produced, either by small stamp clubs to larger societies. And as I mentioned, we try to keep 2 copies of each. So if a closer look, this is the American Philatelist up close. So we have bound copies. We try to bound each volume of a journal, for example, by year or by volume number. And so there'll be a bound copy. And in those sort of what are paper boxes or cardboard boxes you see there on the left, those are the individual issues of a journal. So we try to keep a copy that's bound and a copy and boxes, that archival boxes that have the individual journals in. And it's just a way that sort of, if somebody wants to borrow a bound volume, they can certainly do that. If somebody wants to borrow just a particular issue from a particular year, they can borrow that too. Again, another look back across the library from the back of the on the 2nd floor, looking back, just to sort of give you a scope of the size of the collection. As we do on the 1st floor, this is a workstation on the 2nd floor. If you were to come to the library, this is an area where you could come. You could search the catalog. There on the right, we have a microfilm reader, which allows us, we have a certain portion of the collection. The Lynn Stamp News in the 1930s, 1940s and 50s and 60s really was made with really poor newsprint paper. And a lot of that is sort of actually sort of falling apart as we speak. It's really difficult to handle or touch. So we have the Lynn Stamp News for the 40s, 50s, and 60s on microfilm. We also have the Western Stamp Collector on microfilm as well. And so whenever we don't want to touch the paper copy, which literally sort of can come apart in your hands, we have this as an option to sort of make scans from, or digitize a page, or find an article or something like that in those 2 journals. On the right, on this picture is another workstation. The screen you see there with sort of the bubbles on it is our scanner. It's all the touchscreen interface. So if you were to come into the library, you want to sort of scan an article or a chapter from a book, you could sit at this workstation and sort of scan that particular book or that article or that particular something from that chapter in a book or something. We also have workstations on the 2nd floor during some of our larger events when we have a symposium or we have, say, volunteer work week or summer seminar. This is where a lot of people work, nice little workstations. There's Wi-Fi throughout the library, so people can come in, use the Wi-Fi. We have individual workstations where you can plug in your phone, things like that as well. Back on the 1st floor, this is an area that a lot of the general public doesn't get to see. So this is just an area where staff go in. This is our auction catalog collection. We have it in this compact shelving. You see the handles on the end of the rows where we can crank open sort of the space to sort of put in more material. This is probably the largest. I talked to a gentleman who worked at the British Library in London. It's probably the largest collection of philatelic auction catalogs in the world. And again, just as we do in the main collection, this is a collection where we keep 2 copies of every auction that has ever taken place. So it's not just a domestic, it's not just American auctions, this is truly an international collection. And I should have mentioned that earlier in the main book collection as well. The main book collection is an international collection. It's not just US material. The US section is probably our largest section in the library, but really the collection is truly a worldwide collection. Just to give you a closer view of the auction catalogs, we put them again in these archival cardboard boxes for preservation. On the end of the boxes, we just sort of write what those auctions are, the auction houses and the years that that particular box covers. And again, we try to keep two copies of each of the auctions. Many of the more modern sort of auction catalogs have price lists in them. So if somebody were to call up, this collection really gets used when people call up and say, do you know anything about this particular lot that happened in this auction? And if you have the prices realized, that would be great. What did the item sell for? And so that's where this comes into play a lot. We don't have a lot of provenance information with the auction catalogs. So we do get collections, we do get sort of questions into the library a lot of times about, can you trace this particular item through these auctions over time? And it's a tricky sort of thing. We can do it. It's sort of just a feel where you know where certain items, say, if somebody were to ask me about a particular item of Confederate material, I know which auctions to look in that would give me a basic idea of where that particular lot may have been bought or sold at auction. But it's really a feel. It'd be great to sort of have this whole collection digitized, and that's sort of a talk amongst philatelic librarians now. What do we do with all our philatelic auction catalogs? Because all of them are in hard copy and paper copy. A lot of the auction houses now put out their auctions in digital form, as I'm sure many of you know. You can go to their sites, Siegel and some of the other ones, Harmer. They have digital versions of their catalogs. But we'd really love to go back on some of these older auction catalogs and digitize them. Be an enormous project to undertake, but I think it would be a really interesting project to do. On the second floor, right above where we have the auction catalogs on the first floor, we also have a private space where we have our archival collection. On the left, you again see sort of the compact shelving that we use. It's on tracks so that we can slide it to sort of to put more material in a smaller space. What we have up in this portion of the library, this is also in a non-public space in the library off the second floor. We have material that either donations, research collections, donations that we're working on. We also have second copies of things that we have out in the main collection that we don't want to have sort of circulating to people. This is where we would house that material. But the majority of this takes, what's found here are research collections and donations that we're processing. Again, on the second floor in the non-public space, this is our rare book room. In this room, we have a lot of material that really doesn't circulate at all. It doesn't get used much other than when somebody comes to us in person, or if somebody would like a scan from it, where the library staff handles the material and can, excuse me, and can sort of scan a page or two. These are a lot of items that are very difficult to replace, a lot of first editions, a lot of material that we don't like to circulate, either first edition or they're very rare, or they're just one of a kind, or they're in poor condition. Some of them you can see on the bottom are sort of really in sort of condition that really shouldn't be handled too much. Just another view of the same collection. Just material that's really, really unique to the collection. Also on the second floor, this is a before and after of the carrel area. So a lot of people don't know sometimes when they come to us is that we do have carrels for people. These are private carrels that can be locked. It's in a locked space in the library. On the left is when we first opened this space before the carrels were put in there. On the right is when the carrels have now been put in there. And anybody can use these if you come to the library, whether you're a member or non-member. You can ask to use these. There's no cost to this. But the nice part of this is that there's right above the desk there, you can see a little area where there's two shelves that are lockable, where you can put your material. And again, at the end of the day, this room is locked for any researchers that want to do research there. Last stop on this little tour is the gift shop. Off the main library floor on the first floor, we have a gift shop. The gift shop serves two purposes. We get a lot of donations into the library, and I'll go a little bit into that a little later. We get a lot of donations of material that we don't use for the collection. I should have mentioned in those 90,000 items that we have in the library, about 90% of the library is donated to us. Our members and other people who know about us are very generous in donating material to the library, and this is where some of that excess. So if we don't need something for the collection, this is where it can wind up in the gift shop. So we repurpose everything that we receive in the library. Here's the gift shop. We have bookcases that are sort of behind where this picture is taken, directly behind you. There are bookcases where we sell items, used books that aren't sort of used for the collection. But what we also receive in the library and at the APS, as I'm sure others know, people donate parts of their philatelic collections to us. So this is where that material is found. We have two very dedicated volunteers, Leonard and Darlene Bloom, who have sort of taken this on as their project. Material when it's donated, philatelic material when it's donated to the APS, they sort it, they repurpose it, they sort of reprice it, if you will, and sort of then resell it back to people. So it's a great way to get the material back into the hands of collectors. And it also helps us with revenue in the library and in the gift shop as well. And that's something that we do as well. So that's the end of that. And if I can get out of stop sharing, I will do that. So that's a brief tour of the library. I know some of you have already been here and have sort of seen it. So I hope some of you that haven't seen it, it was interesting to you. Another thing I'd like to show you or take you to is our webpage, where we can sort of walk through some of the services that we do have. And if I can do this sharing properly again. That. So far.
Whoop.
Does everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the main screen for the American Philatelic Society. I'm sure many of you have been here many times before. Where you find the library on this page is under Services. And if you click on Library, it takes you to the library page. This is the main library page. And if you scroll down, you'll see some paragraphs about some of the services that we provide, and I'm going to walk you through some of that. So the first thing I'd like to show you is some of the services that we provide. If you click on Library Services, just under where it says Accessing Our Collection, and you'll be taken to this screen, and this will give you some of the basic things that we do. You can search our catalog online. That's certainly something you can do, and I'm going to sort of take you through that if we've got some time. I might do another session like this to do a little more detailed searching and things like that at another time and another later chat.
Sent in for internet stamp store.
I'm sorry?
I think that was just a random,
Okay.
somebody didn't have their microphone turned
Okay.
up.
Very good. So here on this page, you can find some of the services that we provide, and you just click on these little crosses here. Let's sort of open up each of these sections. This is where you could search our holdings. I mentioned earlier about borrowing material. You don't physically, as a member, have to come into the library to borrow material. Borrowing material can be done remotely. You can either email us after you've searched the catalog, and there's a way to sort of search for something, put it into a cart, and then send that request to us, and we receive that in the library, and we can send material out to you. So a lot of the members, that's a benefit of membership, and I'll talk a little bit for later if you're not a member, how that can be done as well. We ask that people ask for no more than 5 items at a time, and this is really just if you're borrowing, say, 5 books or 5 journal issues or 5 items from the library in some form or other. The reason we just choose 5 is just a way to sort of keep track of what's out there being mailed and coming back to us. If we do make exceptions to that in certain cases, but we do like to sort of limit it to 5 items. One of the other things that we provide are photocopies or scans. When I started about 9 years ago, people were still requesting scans. So say there's a particular article you want us to find, or there's a chapter in a book that you would like us to scan, we can do that. And we can send you a paper photocopy in the mail. A lot of what we find that our users now, it's sort of completely changed. So now we have, in the library, we have a scanner we have 2 scanners on the main floor. On the first floor, we have a scanner on the second floor. We also have a scanner back in a library staff area. A lot of requests that come in remotely, people just ask for scans. So this is something we can scan an article, we can scan a section from a book, we can attach it to an email, and we can do that depending on how many items you're asking to be scanned. We can do that within about 15 to 20 minutes, and it can be in your inbox and your email. And it's really proven to be a really reliable, a really sort of valuable service for our members. They can get things fairly quickly that way. And it's a great way to sort of, you know, if there's more that someone sort of reads in an article that they want something more added to that, we can do that very, very quickly. And they can either print that off at home, or they can just view it on their PC or device. One of the other things we provide are research services. So Marcia Garman is our current reference research assistant, as I mentioned earlier. And so you can call into the library if you have a larger request for something that you would need us to sort of look through the collection and sort of find details. We can certainly do that as well. I mentioned about non-members. We do have an interlibrary loan policy in which you can borrow materials from the library if you're not an APS member. How this is done is that you would contact your local library, say your public library or university library or library near you. They would contact us. You wouldn't contact us directly. So when people call up to us and say, I'm not a member, but can I borrow this book or this item? We would always ask them, can you go to your local library and have them contact us? And the reason we do that is that we have to verify, we have to sort of, when we send the material, if we say it's okay and the person wants to borrow the book, say, and we send it to the library, we don't send it to the individual. And that way the library on the other end of that exchange takes full responsibility for that item being returned. And so what we do, it's no different than if you're an APS member, we pass that on to the cost of that. There is a cost, and I'll go on a little bit into that down below on this screen. There is a cost through interlibrary loan. We pass that cost on to the library. And then it's up to that library that's part of the transaction to either pass that on to the individual, or sometimes larger libraries just, they take care of those costs and don't pass that on, but that's really up to them. It's not a service that we really promote a lot. It's just something, but people can, in certain instances, who are not members can sort of borrow material that way. Finally, at the bottom of the screen here, we have our user fees. There are fees for the services that we provide, even for members. And this is really more or less just to cover some of our costs. So when we send out a book, for example, if a member contacts and wants to borrow a book, the cost is $13 for the first book. But the benefit is if they want to borrow, say, 5 items, it's just $1 for each other item after that. So you could borrow 1 book for $13 and you can borrow 5 for $17. And it's really just to cover our postage. The one thing that we insist on when we send books out is to sort of cover our costs, one thing that we insist on when something gets sent out is has tracking. We need to be able to track it both when it's going to you as the borrower and when it comes back to us as well. And there are also some other fees for photocopies. It's 25 cents a page for scans. It's 25 cents a page for scans to be sent. And I mentioned earlier about some other things as well. What I'd like to do, if people don't mind, is I'm going to show you how to do some searching of the online catalog. So you can either click it here under holdings, or if I go back to the original library page, if I scroll down, here it is right here, to search the online catalog, right under accessing our library collection. So if I click on that, it's going to take us to our catalog, search catalog page. And so this allows you to search everything that we've put into the catalog that you can borrow, for example. We do have some of the books in the rare books collection in here, as well as some of the things in our archives, but it'll let you know if it's borrow or borrow not. What I always do on this page is I will always expand it to an advanced search. And the link for that is right here. So if you go under search tips, the very first link under there is something that says switch to advanced search. The reason I do that just gives me more options. So if I know the author's name or the title of the book or a record type, and I'll get into a little bit of that later, or the author's name or the subject I'm looking for, and this is how we would do that. I don't want to do too many searches today. I just want to show you the basic idea behind it. So we can search title. There are different record types that are in the database. And this is a help screen that'll take you through those if you're looking for what particular type of article thing you're looking for, whether it's an article, whether it's a book, whether it's a government document. More often than not, what I do is I just type something in any word, and it can be anything. I wouldn't type terms like stamps or philately. You will get a lot of results, and it probably won't even come back with results. It'll just keep spinning and spinning and spinning. One key thing to do if you just want to search a particular collection, we do have other partners in the Philatelic Union catalog. So it's not just the records of the APRL, it is also the records of other societies and organizations here in North America. So if you just want to search the APRL, you would sort of select APRL down at the bottom here. And that's when you know you're searching just the collection that we have in Bellefonte here. If you want to search other collections, you can certainly do that as well. The Green Catalog, the Collectors Club of New York, for example, you can search those collections as well. Borrowing from collections, I will say, is up to those libraries. So if you search for something and you find it in the Collectors Club of New York or the Collectors Club of Chicago, you would have to contact them directly to sort of ask them whether that's borrowable or they can make copies for you or things like that. One of the things we are working on with our other philatelic libraries is partnerships where someone could contact us and then I could contact the Collectors Club of New York if they have an item that we don't have in the APRL collection, and they can borrow the item that way. But that's still an ongoing process. The reason that it hasn't happened already is a lot of the catalogs, a lot of the philatelic libraries in the Union catalog are very small. They're volunteer organizations. The Collectors Club of New York is not, I mean, they do have people on staff, but a small group. And so it's not as easy for them to sort of set up sort of sending material off, making sure that we send it to the people asking for it and then sending it back to them. And so we're still working on those partnerships. It's still an ongoing process regarding that. The other thing I'd like to show you on this page is this second item here at the bottom on the right-hand side of the screen. And what it says search duplicate items for sale. I mentioned that we have material in the library. We try to keep 2 copies of everything. If there's something that we don't have in the or that we already have in the collection and we have 2 copies of, we try to repurpose it. And one of the things that we do is we either offer it to some of these other philatelic libraries if they need it. If they don't need it, then we repurpose it by trying to resell it. And a lot of this material is used material. We're not trying to make a lot of money on this material. A lot of what we do is we look to see what's out there in the philatelic world. Say we get a book that we don't need for the collection. We'll look it up online to see what it goes for, and we'll just half that price. We're not really trying to make money on this. It's just sort of a nice way to sort of get this material back in the hands of collectors. So if I click on search for duplicate records, it allows me to search for, in this top sort of text box, you can search for, you know, whatever book or an author's name or something like that. And that's where you can do that search and search for material there. The final thing I want to show you in terms of just sort of visuals for this session is APRL Digital. If I just go back. Down the right-hand side of the library page, you'll notice an icon for APRL Digital. And what APRL Digital is, it's a digital collection of material. Right now it has mostly philatelic journals that we've digitized, that we've scanned in full text and are available to search full text. And if you were to click on this, one of the things you would have to do, this is another member benefit. So in order to sort of access that, you would have to use this login at the top. You would log in just to the APS site, and then that would and then come back to the library page, and then it would log you in automatically to APRL Digital. I will, however, caution, currently I'm working on, there's been an issue with that login not being passed on. So when you log in today, for example, to the APS site, for whatever reason, it's not recognizing you in APRL Digital. I am working on that. I'm hoping to have that cleared up by this week sometime, and I will let people know when that happens. For right now, I just want to show you what the digital library looks like. So if I click on that link, it takes you to this page. And for the purposes of our discussion here, I'm going to, if I can move this. And I'm going to log in. This is normally not where you would log in for this. This is just an administrative login, but I'm going to log in using my login as an administrator just to show you some of the features of APRL Digital. You'll notice it says that I'm logged in now. What this allows you to do on this page is you can search, as I mentioned, the majority of items. That's not a full list of the journals that are here. The majority of the items in the database are journals. We also have some exhibits on the site. We also have a very, very small group of items from the reference collection and expertising. We also plan to grow the book collection. I think we have one book there. There's also a very unique collection that we have in the archives, the American Banknote Company files, which we are in the process of digitizing. It'll take a while. But what I want to show you is just the journal collection for now, just to show you. If I click on journals, it takes me to this page, and this is just sort of a first landing page. The major item that we have in this collection is APRL as the APA, for example. If I click on Browse All Digital Journals, it takes me to the main journal page. Just take a moment here. And so this is the main journal page. And what you're seeing here is just all of the journals listed alphabetically. The very first one is Across the Fence, which is a journal for the Wisconsin Federation of Stamp Clubs. If I click on, say, an item, you can either click on the first page there. It'll come up on this screen. This is still a work in progress. It may be a little slow, the connection here. Hopefully it'll come up here. It's just due to the connection. If I go to a page, for example, we can make this a little smaller so you can see it, but that's the first page of the first issue of Across the Fence. Another interesting feature on this page, you can go to the flip page option, and it's not working. I won't show you that. But on the right-hand side here is where I have, you can click on different pages, for example, and go to the next page. A little slow because of the connection. So in order to view that, we can sort of in and out. What I will show you here is it allows you to print this page. So if you click on print, it'll print, it'll give you print options. Up here, you can either print this page or you can print the whole issue, for example. If you want to download this item, you would click download, and it would ask you to, if you want to download this. I'm going to cancel that. And that's the basics of that. I don't want to go too much into this. I may do another chat that goes into a little more detail with this, just to give you an idea of what this looks like. Here are the different journal titles that we have in the database right now. So we have the American Philatelics, Across the Fence, the Postal History Journal. We have the Philatelic Literature Review, as well as the Congress books, and a few other smaller journals.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Just wondering, we have a bunch of people here online. Maybe if anyone has any questions for you that could unmute.
Yeah, I was going to finish right here, and we're going to do some questions.
Okay, great.
So this
great.
is I'll stop sharing this. And any questions? It's a lot to go through in a really short space of time, but.
Scott, you had said that, you can download or print a page or print the whole thing or whatever, but
Correct.
like the society, one of the ones I belong to, South Atlantic Shops. I get the copies, but there's one that I'm looking for that I don't even have on the society. I have the society's pages all here, and I can't find it. I'm wondering if I look in through there. You think it'll pop up? I don't know how far back you go with that.
What's the name of the
journals?
What's the name of the journal?
South Atlantic, the Shops, SHAPS.
Yeah, we don't have that up yet.
South Atlantic.
The journals that we have
Okay.
there are really journals that societies have come to us and allowed us to sort of put up there. It's not a complete of the journal collection we have upstairs. Yeah. So right now, what we're doing,
very good. Thank you.
What we're doing right now is we ask societies who are interested in having their journals up online if they're interested in having them there. What we not caution, but we want to be honest with them. If the journal is up there, obviously a lot of societies use that, a lot of clubs use that as a benefit of membership. So we're very fortunate that the Collectors Club of New York wanted their journal up there, and some other societies, the Postal History Society as well, has the Postal History Journal up there. So it's really not a complete collection of what we have in our journals. It's nowhere near. We have about 14 journals up there now. I have 14 more in the queue that are ready to go this year sometime. And that's really all that is at the moment. It's hopefully going to grow in the year to come and in the years to come. And it's really sort of a work in progress. Anyone else with any questions about the library or our services or anything I talked about or anything you'd like to ask?
Scott, I'll just make a statement.
Sure.
Every time I go out there, and I'm sure Ron, if Ron's on here, he feels the same way. Everybody out there at the library, you, Marion, even Crystal, just all great people. I mean, I really appreciate my time there and the help that they provide. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We try to do our best. It's I came to the library. I had very little experience in stamp collecting. My brother and my father collected, my older brother, and sort of knew a little bit about stamp collecting, but it's just a fascinating library to work in. I've enjoyed I enjoy working there. I enjoy meeting the people, helping people with their research requests. And I should have mentioned some of the requests we get, just to give you an idea of some of the requests we get. We'll get something small like, can you give me a value for this particular stamp, or can you identify this stamp? We've done that. We can look it up in the Scott catalog, or look it up in a catalog and identify a stamp. Sometimes they just want to know a value. What's the current value for this particular stamp in used condition or in new condition? One of the very first requests I got in the library when I was just starting out as a reference librarian was somebody wanted to know how a piece of mail got from New York City to Paris, France in 18 something. And I just about fell off my chair. And once I realized, okay, this is a question I've got to answer, it was a matter of going through the collection, figuring out what were the ports, how did it get from New York across the pond, where did it go once it got there, how much it cost along the way, because before we had postage stamps, as many of you know, postage was paid at almost each stop along the way. So this person wanted to know the route it took. He wanted to know all the postage that was involved. He wanted to know, how it would get there. Would it get there by boat? Once it came off the boat, how would it get to Paris, France, and things like that. So it's fascinating. I'm a history buff. I'm a geography buff. I dabble in a little bit in politics, and I'm sure as many of you know, stamps touch on all those subjects. They touch on so many different things, and it was just fascinating to use my interest in these other areas towards my profession. It's a really interesting library to work in. It really, really is. You meet the gamut. There are people who are just starting out in the hobby, and there are people who are very advanced in the hobby. And on both levels, on both ends of that spectrum, people are more than willing to help you when you get stumped on a question, for example. I reach out all the time to fellow members or other collectors about, boy, I'm stumped on this question. Can you help me out with this one? Any other questions? Any comments? We're always looking for ideas for services we don't necessarily provide to, so any of that. Anyway, go ahead.
I had a question.
Sure.
I use newspaper archives a lot when I do my research.
Sure.
And I know a lot of people don't like to pay for that service. If they came to the APRL, do you have that available?
We do not currently have that available. It is something I want to look into. I want to get to newspaper.com and get a sort of a subscription that's usable in the library. I've used it periodically. I've had sort of subscriptions off and on with it. And it is something I would like to offer our members, at least those who come to the library, to use. Absolutely. Newspapers are a great resource, no question. Anyone else? Any thoughts, comments?
Do you have any books that you recommend?
From the collection?
Yeah.
Oh boy. For those just starting out, there's a couple of really good books that I would recommend. There's the Lynn's Guide to Stamp Collecting. If you want to go more into the real fine details of stamp collecting and how stamps are produced, I would highly recommend Fundamentals of Philatelic. It's like the Bible of the hobby. Provides a lot of great information. I will not say that I read it cover to cover when I first came to the library, but I read large portions of it when I first came to the library. It was a great resource because as many of those of you in the hobby know, people are interested not just what's on the stamp, how it was produced, how is the paper produced, how is the printing done. And Fundamentals of Philatelic goes into a lot of detail with that. But if you're looking for a good sort of book just to sort of get you started with collecting, I recommend Lynn's Guide to Stamp Collecting. It's a really good resource. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a question. This is Betsy, and I live in Northern California.
Okay.
And I started collecting stamps because I inherited my father's stamp collection. So I
Sure.
ran across your website, and I'm very excited to learn about your library. And my
Great.
question is, on the West Coast, do you have an affiliate on the West Coast? I'm looking, I see there's one in Redwood City.
Yeah,
Uh,
the Western Philatelic Library.
Yeah, Western Philatelic Library.
Yeah.
It looks like there's San Diego Philatelic Library. So are all these libraries affiliates, or are they standalone?
They are standalone, but for example, the Western Philatelic Library, their catalog is in our online catalog. So that's searching
Okay.
before. If you went to the bottom of the screen and selected PL, you would be searching the Western Philatelic Library. Yeah.
Okay.
And these
Okay.
are just libraries. When we started putting the online catalog together, we offered to them if they would be interested in selling and sort of sending their records to us, that we could in the online catalog, and then that way people could search their collections as well. You could do that remotely. Say if you're in California, you could search the Western Philatelic Library through our online catalog.
I see. Okay, I'll do a little more research on all of this.
Great.
How they're related.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, one of the things I should mention is a program that we're going to start in the next little while. I'm sort of working on it as I'm home from the library right now. Is we're looking into an Adoptive book program. It's going to be a little bit of a fundraising program where we were talking earlier. Someone asked me about what books I would recommend or some of my favorite books in the collection. And so what we're going to start is an Adoptive book program where people can sort of think of the books that meant a lot to them when they first started collecting, or the books that they use a lot in their collecting. And they can contact us with opportunities to sort of have a book plate put in a particular book, and sort of as a way of sort of donating to the library and having their name in a book for as one of their favorite books. So be on the lookout for that. It's something that we'd like to start fairly soon. I'm in the process of sort of going over how we go about doing that on the website. And so if you have a favorite book in philately or in stamp collecting, let us know. Anyone else? I guess what I could ask some people here is I know some of you are sort of new to the library. So is there a particular, those of you who are familiar with our collection, is there a particular book or part of the collection that you would like to see more of? I know we have some pretty small parts of the collection. I mentioned it's a worldwide collection. Probably the largest sections are United States, Germany. Those are probably the two largest. We're always looking for, when new material comes out, when a new book comes out and gets published, we'd always love to hear from you about, is this book that should be in the library? As I mentioned, about 90% of what we have in the library is donated to us. I do have small budgets for purchasing items. So if there are materials in the library that you'd like to see in the library, please drop me a line, either email or call, and we can certainly sort of look into sort of purchasing items. We're very fortunate with the material that gets donated to us. For example, the Scott Catalogue, every year the newest edition gets donated to us by Amos Publishing, and Stanley Gibbons does the same in England, and the Mikko Catalogue in Germany, for example. The biggest areas that I'm always looking to improve in the collection are like specialized catalogs. So the Hungarian specialized catalog, or the specialized catalog of, Canada, the Unitrade catalog, for example. We're always looking to purchase those simply because those I know that our members like to use, and they have a little more detail than some of just the standard catalogs. I would sort of mention also, even though I'm here at home, I am providing a little bit of reference service as I can. Feel free to email me or call the library. The library phone in my office is being routed to my cell phone right now. So if you're looking for a reference request, you can contact us at library@stamps.org. If you have a question during this time, I can certainly do my best to try and answer it. Or you can contact me directly. My last name is Tiffney, so it's stiffney@stamps.org. But the best way to contact me is library@stamps.org. There's also a phone number I could give you, but I mean, if you contact me through email, that would probably be the easiest right now. And as I say, I do have access to the collection. I can certainly sort of try and see if an answer is in APRL digital as well. Anything else? What I want to try and do, maybe down the road, I'm going to talk with Tom a little bit more about other sessions we can do, maybe get into a little more detail with searching the online catalog. That's certainly something I could do, as well as searching APRL digital and all that it can offer, as well as, you know, printing and downloading from it. If there's ideas that you would like me to sort of speak about during this time, I'm more than happy to. You can either contact myself or Tom, and he can let you know about when we can sort of do a chat along those lines as well.
I think everyone should just call you, Scott.
Yes, just call me.
You have the phone on 24/7?
It's right here by my side, yes.
There may be a philatelic emergency that someone needs an answer to, so be prepared.
Well, it's so funny because when I first became the reference assistant, Neil Coker, who some of you might know, he's now with a stamp auction firm. He was training me how to work on the reference desk, and he helped me with some of the material that's in the collection, because that's the biggest thing. I'm certainly not an expert in philately, but I certainly know where to find things in our library, and I know where to find resources. But anyway, he said he was sort of preparing me for the philatelic emergencies that happen. And he says, you will get somebody who will call you and say, like, this is the philatelic emergency. I need the answer in like a minute. And that does happen on occasion, particularly if someone's I had a gentleman call me this morning, and unfortunately I did all I could to sort of help, and I think I helped him a little. But he's got an auction that's about to close, and he wants to bid on an item, and it's closing in about 15 minutes, and he wanted anything I could find on that item. I was able to find him a few things online, and that sort of helped him out. He just wanted to get an idea of what he would, if what he was looking at was the genuine item, and we screen shared. He sent me a picture of the item, and I did my best to sort of, I'm certainly not someone who can authenticate stamps, but I certainly gave him a couple of resources that would help him sort of give him an idea of if the item is actually genuine. So yes, philatelic emergencies do happen, apparently.
Anyone else have any questions? Well, I guess not. Tonight at 7 o'clock, we're going to have another Zoom, and we are going to talk about, and I'll just credit Casey Joe for giving me this fantastic idea for 7 o'clock. We're going to talk about first day covers and also cachet making. So if you have any interest in those topics, feel free to come into our 7 o'clock Zoom meeting. And if you have something to show and tell, please do, and we will see you then. So thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take care, Scott.
Okay,
Thank
you
you.
too. Bye-bye.